Hello. Quick introduction. My name is Stella Bayles. I work at coveragebook.com now, but a little short introduction of where I'm from and why I'm talking about this. So I started my career in PR. I spent about roughly 6 years in PR agencies in London, and then after 6 years, decided that I needed a bit of a change. I felt a little bit disillusioned with the sort of lack of development and innovation in PR measurement, and I'd go to my interagency meetings, and then the digital guys would arrive with their amazing graphs and their claims to all sorts of business impact, and we'd still be there with our coverage books, knowing with a gut feel that we had had a lot more impact than actually what we were showing. So I thought, I'm going to go over and experience some of that. So I decided to go and join an SEO agency, and that was called PropellerNet. And then I spent quite a long time there, actually. It wasn't the plan, but I spent another 6 years in search. So an equal amount of time between PR and SEO. Once I got to that search agency, I learnt a lot from some great people there. One of them is in this room. And built a comms team within that search and built a new offering that was SEO PR. And the reason why I'm now back in the PR industry and sharing some of this is because the offering is very successful, and in my opinion, where PR measurement should be. We were able to deliver true ROI, and it was successful for the agency. We increased the revenue by about 85% for the agency through the success of that offering. So that's why I'm now back sharing it with you guys. So now I'm at coveragebook.com, and really what we're trying to do is develop technology for PR, so we can save time through some of the grunt work, which is often building coverage books, so we can free up time for you guys to get on with some of the more important stuff. So so share some of that today. But quick question, who reports on PR here in the room? Quite a few people. Good. So hopefully, do you recognise some of these metrics and measurements in PR? Nods, yes. We have become in the PR industry really, really good at measuring awareness. We've got so good, we've got all sorts of different types of metrics to all measure awareness. But often I'm trying to think, do we really care about what happens next? We know how to measure our coverage and how we increase the awareness amongst our target audience, but do we really know what they did after they went and read that piece of coverage? Did they go on to try and find any more? Did we convert them? Did they become an advocate? And for me, I think we're really, really strong in that area, but maybe we're not so strong in some of the other areas, apart from the team at 3, by the sounds of it. But it's not new. We've just talked about the Barcelona principles. We know that we need to go beyond awareness. I think the first principles were released over 7 years ago now. And AMEC and PRCA, etc., told us to go beyond awareness, be thinking about how you made a change to that target audience and what was the business impact. Now, I felt that when I was looking through the Barcelona principles that they were really great principles to follow, but I felt that there wasn't enough support on how to prove the business impact and how to prove that change in target audience. So I feel like there's a lot of questions still there. And because of those questions, and because we are still just very much stuck at the awareness stage of our customer journey for our target audience, we often find that we're still in that position where we go to our interagency meetings and a digital team arrives and they can prove the impacts they're having on all of these points, and we're very much still stuck in awareness. But what if we said this? Actually, over half of website traffic to the majority of sites can be attributed to PR. That's a lot more of an impact than just talking about AVE or how many eyeballs I got for my coverage. That's quite some statement. Do we believe it? Don't believe it. Sorry?
Depends on the business.
Yes, it does depend on the business. That's a good point. I needed a good stat though. But yes, it is true because over half of all website traffic comes from natural search. And when I'm going to be talking about natural search today is about Google, because we're in all English-speaking countries, it's pretty much the #1 search engine, about 95% market share in the UK. So I'm talking about Google. So yeah, and that's probably not so much of a surprise for us. And I'm going to explain why there is that connection. So again, this might not be a surprise, but more and more online search engines are the most trusted source of information online. We are going, this is research from this year, it's gone up this year. People are going to search engines and trusting the information and the results we're getting back more and more. I can see people taking pictures, but I need to go quickly, sorry. And why is that? So if we look at the search results, and I've put in the term interim management. That's quite niche, but that's what I need to find out about today. And actually, 80% of us are clicking on the natural search results rather than the ads. That's probably not a big surprise. Interestingly, though, 85% of spend from digital marketing budgets is actually on the ads. But the reason why, going back to that stat that I shared, what's this got to do with PR? It's the natural search bit that we want to be talking about today. And that's where 80% of us are clicking. So it's a lot of people who are going to that area of the site. Just a quick note, those stats came from this book. I recommend that book, Marketing in the Age of Google, Vanessa Fox. It's a great book. But you're probably asking, okay, we know about Google, we know about search. What does this have to do with PR? This is what it has to do with PR. Google makes its decisions based on what influencers are saying online. Google wants to ensure that the results it's serving up to the 4 billion people that goes to Google every single day is quality content. And the way that it decides what's quality or not is based on who else is talking about that content online. So let's think about that in terms of a PR campaign. Google sees a PR campaign go live. It doesn't know it's a PR campaign, but it certainly knows who are influencers online. So it starts to see some of the biggest influencers in the online space, whether it be a journalist, a blogger, a social influencer, talking about a piece of content, and lots of people are sharing that piece of content. It starts to realise that that content should be in front of their huge audience, because if these third-party influencers are saying that it's a great piece of content and recommending it, Google needs to put it in front of their audience too. And really that's where PR comes into play. So our PR campaign goes live, all about you, the Mirror Online, Mail starts to talk about our content, our clients' content that's part of our PR campaign. Google is watching that. Our PR campaign's live, we're really happy with our coverage, and we're reaching our target audience through those channels, and we're happy with that. Is that normally where we stop our reporting? It certainly was when I was in PR. That's normally where I draw the line and I'll go and count how many pieces of coverage I got. Well, there's a whole lot more that's going on behind the scenes. Google's watching that, and then it makes its changes in the search results. So as I mentioned, it's making changes based on what these influencers are sharing and saying. So it brings that content that's being shared to the top of its search engine results in front of its millions of people. And the difference in this crowd of people who are seeing our clients' content in Google in comparison to the people that we're reaching through our coverage is the modes that they're in. And this is where I find it really interesting when I first moved from PR to search. The people reading our coverage on the Reds, for example, or the Mirror, for example, are very much in browse mode. They're probably not, even though we like to think that they do, they're probably not going to read that coverage and go off and buy our product or quickly go and make an action off the back of it, because we know when we're reading editorial, we're very much in browse mode and we're not actively looking for that information. We're not ready to be marketed to, we're just browsing through editorial content. The difference being is when you put yourself in your shoes when you're searching for something, you're actively looking for that information. And that's a very different target audience here that are on Google in comparison to here. But the content that the people on Google are being served up by it's only there because of this recommendation. If there was no recommendation from the influencers to our clients' content, it wouldn't be visible. That's a fact. So that's where it's from. So that's a very brief explanation of how Google works. Obviously, the full algorithm of how the search engine works will never be revealed. There's lots of debate. You can go and read lots of different search blogs of the latest updates. I know that there was one 2 weeks ago from Search Metrics on the latest algorithm updates that they believe are in place. But Google will always keep that top secret. However, it'll always be down to these 3 areas. First area, that's really small text, but I'll be able to read it out to you. Maybe not a good photo opportunity. So content always needs to be technically sound. So what I mean by this is behind the scenes, it needs to be signposted to Google really well to say this is what this content is all about. Google. This content is all about red shoes, and therefore people who are looking for red shoes need to know that this is here. So it needs to be technically sound and set up well. The content needs to be engaging to you and I as we go looking for content. It needs to be engaging. It needs to have great images. It needs to have videos, different types of content. It needs to be quality. But the big third area, which is why there's such a link to PR, is that in order for Google to make content more prominent, it needs to see how it's recommended elsewhere online. And recommendation comes down to influencers and how influencers are talking about content, and that's where PR come into play. Now, Google really sort of sees the signals in recommendation as links to a piece of content. So what I mean by that is a piece of coverage that we might get for our client. If there's a link within that piece of coverage going through to our client's website, that is a huge signal to Google to say this is a recommendation from the Daily Mail, for example. And they're the signals that Google's looking at. Now, and it's also shares of a piece of content as well. Now, if PR wasn't involved in those links and shares, how are we gaining those links and shares to a piece of content? It's going to be very difficult. It's all about building relationships with influencers and getting them talking about our campaign and our clients' content and sharing that. And that is why there's such a huge opportunity for PR. Just to reiterate the point, it's all about links going into a website. All of these logos represent pieces of coverage that we could be getting for our client. On this occasion, I've used the Speedo. And every time one of these influencers, this website, somebody on Twitter, a blogger, talks about Speedo and links to the Speedo website, that is a huge signal to Google to say this is a quality piece of content. And we say so, therefore it should be more visible within Google as well. So, because of these 3 areas, and this penguin, does anyone know why there's a penguin on the screen?
Yes. One of the algorithms.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the many algorithm updates from Google. Now, the reason why I haven't mentioned the others, there's a lot of talk about a Panda update this week. You may have seen that in the marketing press and the search press. But the reason why I'm such a fan of the penguin is because this is the major update from Google, and there's always further updates on this around the removal of sites from the search rankings with spammy links. Now, that is even a bigger opportunity for the PR industry. When this first happened back in 2011, 2012, I think it was, the first update from this was really where it presented the biggest opportunity for PR. So what this means is that Google will be removing any content from Google rankings with paid-for links or spammy links. So really, what Google is saying there, they're only taking into consideration content with editorial and true influencer links coming into it. Now, if that's not a job for the PR industry, I don't know what is. So that is why the PR industry are really holding up positions for their clients' content, and that's where natural search comes into it. So we're talking about ROI and reporting here, so I just want to use the next couple of minutes of explaining really sort of step by step how I used sort of this search impact and PR and combined it into a report for my clients through those years. So we talked about links and being a signal to Google. So for me, this is a report that did very well for some of my past clients, and I'd hope that it could be an example report for some of you guys in the future. So really what we're talking about is all of the conversations and influences that we're changing opinion with really what we're doing is using that earned recommendation back to our owned content. And that's where paid, owned and earned really does come into play. But we haven't got enough time to talk about a piezo bottle today. But what I would always recommend is bringing back that recommendation back to the owned content, because that's where you're going to get that next level of impact. So obviously the logos represent the different social shares, and then the yellow boxes are the pieces of coverage with links going back into our clients' content. On the right, we've got some metrics that we're probably used to, but it's the next slide that is the important one. So every time we get a piece of coverage, we've got the link there, but it has a knock-on effect, and we are going to get to the business impact at the end of that. So we've got our coverage, and within our coverage, there's links going to our clients' content. Tick. We're probably doing that already. This is an example. Let's say for my last PR campaign, I got 150 links through my 200 pieces of coverage. It was a big PR campaign. I was pleased with it. So just use that as an example. And then we had some content as part of that PR campaign, and that got some social shares too. That's another signal to Google, so I'm going to count that. Now, because of those two elements, my client's website started to strengthen in Google's eyes, because it's got that recommendation coming into it. And as it strengthens, it's going to become more prominent in Google search rankings. And that's what the biggest media platform in the world. So we really want to be, it's important for us. So people might be aware of this already. I use a score from Moz, which is like an industry tool in the search industry. There's many others, but I recommend it. It's an easy, free download for your Chrome toolbar. I really recommend it. So they use domain authority as their sort of representative score that's similar to how Google views a website. So my client's website strengthened from 52 to 59. It's out of 100. It normally strengthens over time. So it's just a good one to track. So as the content starts to strengthen, we know that means it's on its way to being more prominent in the search rankings, which is great. But what does it actually mean in terms of its visibility on Google? Well, I'm going to start looking at the keywords of how the website starts to go up in those search rankings. So for this particular example, after my PR campaign, we had new, my client's website appeared for new keywords, and they went from being on page 3 to page 1. That's brilliant. That was off the back of that work. Then what did that actually mean? Well, as they went up in the search rankings, it meant that more people, so if we're thinking back to the search results, 80% clicking on those natural search results, who goes past page 2? Does anyone go past page 3? You do. Good for you. Not many people do. About 60%, well, it depends on what industry, but about 60% of people are clicking on that top position. So as you go down page 1, it sort of gets less and less. So the positions do make a difference. But what we saw here was as we started to appear for more keywords, we had 30,000 people going through from those keywords through to the area of the site that we were aiming for, which was brilliant. I mean, I could stop at that and be quite pleased off the back of my PR campaign that I can prove that. But we wanted to go one step further, and so through Google Analytics, we wanted to see, okay, off the back of the people who of the back of the people who only came from natural search, so just the natural search results, I'm not counting any ads or anything else, what did they do next? I'm really curious. I wanted to know what they did next. Not go back. Okay, we had 200 new customers off the back of that traffic that came from natural search that only went up in natural search because of my PR campaign, because of the links in my coverage. So hopefully you can see now the step-by-step impact that our PR coverage is having. Hello. Question.
What time frame?
This is over 2 months.
2 months. Is that 30,000 visits as opposed to how much in 2 months before you track that? So
we did, yes, but I've simplified it. So yeah, this is just in those 2 months. Yeah. It was about, I can't remember off the top of my head what the increase was, but it was quite some increase because of they had no visibility before that.
So the 200 were tracked purely from those 30,000?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Why are you not measuring page authority?
We did in a more detailed report, but for this particular client, they wanted us to look at the whole site because we had an objective of increasing the keywords across the board rather than just one set.
I can answer a bit of that because
I work with Gary.
Sorry, I will. So a lot of the coverage was new coverage, a brand new link in the BBC. If you check the page authority, it doesn't accrue any page authority for 2 or 3 months. Yeah. So it's a quick expansion.
In that case, what do you measure trust from mythology?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's it. Hopefully I wasn't so much longer, but I tried to go through that quite quickly. Go on.
This is going to be a totally stupid question.
And there's no such thing as a stupid question, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to...
This will be one. Your stats, 85% of sales is from paid, right?
Yep.
On Google.
85% of spend.
85% of spend.
Yeah.
What we're talking about spend, yeah? Okay. So that leaves you paying in 15% of the remaining. So all your effort is going into attracting potentially 15%. Have I just got the universe right?
So the stats from Marketing the Age of Google book, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's on average marketing spend, yeah.
So you're basically playing in spaces where there's potentially 15% earnings to be applied.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. I'm not sure if I'm following the question.
Yeah, I think I understand the train of thought. I think it's almost highlighting the craziness in the market that 85% of spend goes on only where 15% of the market is clicking. So
Digital marketing spend
of paid search spend
goes on AdWords.
goes on AdWords. Yeah.
You're working on AdWords, not on income.
Yeah, I guess it's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, sorry, I moved through that quite quickly. So yeah, 85% is on AdWords. Yeah, because it's really difficult to get to the top of natural.
They get this square because it looks as if you were saying that 85% of the return is from paid advertising.
No, it's from natural, but it's really difficult to get there.
Round of applause for Stella Bayles.